Hello, hello. Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. If there's one question that runs through every human's, but certainly every parent's mind, at least 1,000 times a day, it's this: am I good enough? I cannot tell you how many times I myself battled this question just yesterday. Am I good enough? Is what I'm saying to my child going to be useful? Is it going to be valuable? Is my child going to turn out okay? This is the universal parental concern. And understandably so. Listen, it's a tough life out there, and we want to give our children everything of the best. But I always remind parents that what they think is the best, as in the best education, the best advice, the best lessons, the best sermons, the best things, are often not what our children need. Coming up next, I'm going to be joined by an older parent, a parent who had her children much later in life, and now she's consumed with worry about what will happen to them when she passes on. I think every parent is going to relate with this next story. You know, as parents, we worry so much about what's going to happen to our children when we're not around, especially when we die. And death, as we know, is inevitable, but our concerns for our children seem often insurmountable. How will they manage? What will happen if they forget about me or forget about all the values I have instilled in them? This is such a ubiquitous phenomenon in us parents. So this next story is Karen's story. Karen is a mother of triplets, and she is a 65-year-old mother who is concerned about how her children will be when she passes on. Will they remember all the values she's instilled in them? Will they remember her culture? What will happen to them once she passes on? So here's Karen. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So Karen, tell us just briefly, what concerns you? What worries you? What keeps you up at night?
Well, having the children late, I was so grateful with the opportunity to have children. I didn't expect to have them. And so it was just a gift. And so now that I have this wonderful gift, and they're wonderful children, it's just that I'd lost my mother a few years back. I was in my late 50s when I lost her. And I realized I had her for so long and how grateful I was to have that opportunity to have her that long. And she was such an instrumental part of my life. And then I realized, oh my God, my kids won't have me until that point. And then I started to wonder, oh my God, what's going to happen when I go? They're not going to be in their late 50s. They'll be much younger. And since then, I really gave it a lot of thought. And then after that, I ended up getting divorced, which was so traumatic for the entire family. But it was really because of values. I realized how important values are, especially with everything's going on. And you want to make sure your children are on the right side of things, that they remain there. That's my big thing for them. I really find the things that I value the most is kindness and good and, making sure that they keep that going. And my mom was very instrumental, and my grandmother before that, in that path. And I'm thinking, what happens when I'm gone? Will they forget? Will they change? Will they pick up different values? That's where it all began, was when I lost my mom.
So you had your children when you were 50 years old. So that is a little bit, quote unquote, late. Of course, there's no such thing as being late. Everything is always happening at the time it's supposed to happen. But because you had them a little later and now they're 15, and you just experienced the passing of your mother, what I observed you say is that one after the other, you had this domino of concern. You got a divorce. There was this explosion. So I just want us to notice how we get triggered by the external events in our lives, and that sends us spiraling. But let's go to a problem that I think many parents have. So many of our listeners right now could relate to this, which is what will happen when, right? So just that, we are constantly wondering what will happen when, and it's typically something in the future. In your case, you've decided to center your anxieties around your death. Now, Karen, you and I both know you could outlive all of us, right? All of us 2 times over. But yet, because you just experienced the death of your own mother, and I'm sure you're still processing that grief, immediately you now transfer that grief. We call that a projection. You project that grief onto your children. Oh, what if they experience the same grief? This is what we parents typically do. We do 2 things. We live in the future and we project how we are and what we feel and our relationship with the significant others in our lives onto our children. So you're doing this. I'm experiencing so much loss. I'm feeling so much grief around my mother. Oh my goodness, what if my children experience this too? And now you're just caught up in this spiral of concern and anxiety. So let me ask you, when you think these thoughts, and it sounds like it's an avalanche, does it end up making you feel better or worse? Now, I know it's a simple question, but just go with me here.
I feel worse.
You feel worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does.
Does it make you feel less energetic or more energetic?
Less energetic.
Exactly. Does it make you feel like, I'm going to have the best day. I'm going to live my life to the fullest? Or does it make you feel, oh my goodness, I don't have much time left. What is going to happen to my children? I'm just so miserable. Let me just eat some popcorn and drown myself in my sorrows. Which one?
Actually, I do the opposite. I do lots of yoga.
Okay, good.
I'm really trying to keep myself very fit and make sure my children don't see me as, oh, poor mom, she's getting old. I keep up with them very much.
Yes.
Like just this past Friday, we went to Coney Island in New York, and I got on all the rides with them. I went on the roller coaster.
Good. But I don't want you to have to try. You see, the listeners are not seeing you right now, but if they could, they would see a hugely energetic person. I've never seen a 65-year-old look so young. And you look vibrant. That's the more important thing. You look energetic. You look enthusiastic. And so these thoughts that you're having are controlling your mind. And that's what we humans are so good at doing. We create stories about a future event that we don't even know when it will happen. But then those thoughts influence our mood. Now, the next thing we do as parents, which is more unique to us parents, we want to control how our children will turn out. So like you said, I'm just worried about their values and how they will live the values I've given them. Guess what? Now, this may come as a surprise to most parents, so just, brace yourself. You don't get to have the right to control how your children turn out. Guess what you have a right to? There's only one thing you have a right to. Do you know what that is?
Myself.
Yes, how you turn out right now. You don't even have a right to say, you know what? I want to have a control over how I turn out in 6 minutes. You don't even have a control over that. So you don't even have a control over how you will be tomorrow. But look at us parents. We want to control how our children will be posthumously, like when we're dead and gone. That speaks to your desire for a lot of control, doesn't it, Karen?
Yes, it does.
Yes. Like you're a master puppeteer and you want to keep creating your children. And you know that you're not their creator. You know that you're not the mass puppeteer in control of their lives. You know that the divorce happened out of your prediction. You know that life is just ready to throw us a wild curve. And the more we seek to control, the less control we have in the moment.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense now. But when you're in that train of thought, it kind of overwhelms you and it takes you in a different place.
Yes.
I take responsibility in myself that I keep myself healthy. I do the things I can do for myself to project a good image to my children. And it's good for me. It can't hurt that I'm taking really good care of myself for them. But I realize that's probably the only thing I actually have control over.
You're making it sound as if it's like, oh, that's all
the
I
constellation
have.
prize.
Yes, it's just like, oh my God, 10th prize, right? Here's the thing. That is the way to live life. And we have forgotten that this is where our focus needs to be. We have pretended as if we have this never-ending control of our children for the future. This is a delusional way of thinking. And people, especially parents, have this delusion of grandeur that they get to influence their children forever. I want you to shift that. Let's reframe that and say instead to ourselves, wow, I get to be alive right now. Look how much power I have over my moods, my emotion, my energy, my vibe right now. And let me not treat this like a consolation prize. Let me treat this as the supreme gift of the universe to myself, that I get to be here right now. And whoosh, the minute we come into the present moment, it's like, wow, the spaceship has landed. I've come back home. I'm right here, right now. I mean, at least whenever I do that, when I just make a decision to get off that train, which is going speeding downhill toward the future that I can't control, and I say to myself, get off the train, Shefali, and I get off the train, I just come back into my body. And I feel so grateful that I have this life, this body, this child in front of me, and I maximize what I can control, which is my mood, my energy right here, right now. I don't treat it like, oh, that's all I have, or let me make the best of it, or let me try really hard to be positive. I genuinely come from a wellspring of abundance, and I can see that you have that potential, Karen. You have it. You're just allowing yourself to go on that train downhill into the future.
I do.
How can you make a commitment, right? Living intentionally is not an accident. It's a daily commitment, especially with our children. Whether they're 2, they're 15, or 35, or to any human, any intimate relationship, to show up with intention takes a commitment. Me telling you this is not going to do it. You reading a pithy maxim on the internet is not going to do it. You have to really embody that and commit to it and declare each day, wow, I get to make a difference in my life and those I love today. So many parents live in regret about the past. I'm sure you've had thoughts about oh my goodness, the divorce, and why did I wait so long to have these children? And what if we do that for the past and then we do it for the future, right? We try to design the future, but we can't. We need to live here right now. And guess what? Your children are 15. They are in the fountain of their youth. They are full of life and joie de vivre. They are here to suck your energy and take it and run with it. So the more you give them right now, that's how you can ensure that your legacy lives on. Even though wanting our legacy to live on is such a superior thing, it's such an act of like, oh, I'm so superior. I know you don't mean it that way, but the best moments that your children are going to remember in the future, whether you're living or dead, is how did mommy show up in the most ordinary of moments on that roller coaster, making those pancakes, laughing loudly in the sun. That's what our children remember. See, we think we need to leave them with history lessons. Let me tell you about how my ancestors lived and how your grandmother lived when she was a teenager. Our children don't need history lessons. They need our presence and you have so much presence to give them.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true.
So how are you going to make a commitment? Tell us, Karen.
I've started. I really did. The beginning of the year, I really did start going back to yoga and being more committed to my diet and, to take better care of myself because I wanted to live longer. That was the goal. So now I have to do what you're telling is to be present in the moment, be with them and not worrying about the things that I'm worrying about, because I do worry a lot. I worry, oh my God, what if this happens? And then you look at the news and you get more paranoid about other things and it just compounds itself. So I think just to be present in the moment with whatever is happening, it's probably, the best advice I could take. It's a commitment and it's something that it's a practice, like yoga, like anything. I have to get up and just make sure that I come back to myself. Because when I'm with myself fully, then I'm with them fully. And I think that's probably the best thing I could do. It sounds so simple. And you thought you would think you could just think of that, but I didn't.
It's
Thank you.
It's so eloquently elegant and simple. This is the beauty of life. It's actually so simple to live a bountiful life. But we humans like to go in our head and overproduce reality and overthink and overworry. And that's an unproductive way of trying to control our uncontrollable life, right? That's our attempt. So you have been amazing. When you said, when I show up for myself, I show up for others, I literally had goose flesh all over my body. You hit it on the head. That's it. When we show up for ourselves, when we show up to our present moment with our fullness, with our abundance, with our radiance and resplendence, our children bask in that energy and we don't have to say a word. It is that way of living that they absorb. Parents think we need to give sermons and opinions and wisdom and jewels and history lessons, right? No, our children pick up on how we energetically are in the present moment. That's what your greatest legacy is as a parent. So thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable.
Thank you so much. That was such great advice. Thank you.
Being in intimate relationships are so hard, aren't they? Especially the ones we have with our partners and our children. If only we had a magic wand that we could control them, that they would do as we wanted, talk like we wanted, know exactly how to please us, and just follow our script. Just do as we say. We would all be so happy. We'd all get along. Well, sadly, the people we are in relationships with, they want the same thing for themselves. They want to be in control of themselves, damn it. And therefore, we often get into power struggles with them because they are seeking control for their own life, for their own thoughts, and we are seeking control over them. So, in order for us parents to be the most conscious parents possible, especially parents and children, is to release our children into their own knowing. Now, this relinquishment of control takes enormous wisdom and consciousness on the part of the parent. It is so hard for a parent to relinquish control over their children. We want to control how they think, their moods, what they will do when we die. We want to basically make sure that they are okay according to our vision of okay. Even if they say they're okay, but it doesn't match our vision, we have a problem. So therefore, in order to be the most conscious and accepting of our children, we need to release control over them. I write in my book, The Parenting Map. There's a whole chapter on releasing control because that's how hard it is. I write, to dance the fine line of taking care but not taking over is a perilous one indeed. How to be there but not everywhere. How to love but not smother. How to walk beside but not overstep, how to attune but not accost. Now this is the art and heart of being a conscious parent. And I would say it's the art and heart of being a conscious human, because even in our intimate relationships, we seek this control. Coming up next, you're going to hear from a young woman who is grappling with a life-changing decision. Should I become a mom or not? And more importantly, will I be good enough? You know, whenever I talk to young adults who are on the brink of making that life-changing decision, should I become a parent or not, one of the concerns I keep hearing is, what if I pass down all my emotional trauma? What if I pass down all my family's dysfunction? Oh my goodness, how will I handle it? How will my child handle it? And that's exactly how our next guest is feeling. Joining me now is a young woman who is trying to make a life-changing decision. Should I be a parent or not? Should I become a mother? And will I be good enough? Welcome, Jazz.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. So I know that you've been suffering some losses. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I recently just lost my grandparents, both who raised me. My biological parents split up when I was very young. Since then, my grandparents raised me. And last year, I lost both of them unexpectedly within 3 weeks of each other. And I just feel like a very big void and loss in my life. It's bringing up some childhood trauma and abandonment issues that I've personally dealt with. Now that I'm 35 and one day want to have my own family, I just want to make sure that I have the right tools around me so that I can heal from that trauma, so that when I have my own children one day, it's not something that I'm passing along to them.
Wow. So I'm, offering you my condolences. I can see that this is so hard for you. You lost your essential, closest family. So let me just understand, you were adopted by your grandparents. So your biological parents put you up for adoption when you were very young?
I'm not adopted, but my biological father got legal custody. But since both of my biological parents got remarried, my paternal grandparents had decided at a very young age that they were going to raise me. So I grew up living with them, sharing a bed with them and with my grandma. And that's what I've known to be my parents.
Would you say that your attachment, your security, your connection with your biological parents is shaky?
Yes, I haven't had any contact with my biological mother since maybe the age of 4. And my biological dad got remarried as well. So our relationship really hasn't been so much of a father-daughter relationship.
So your main maternal figure in your life was your grandmother?
Yes.
And how would you describe that relationship with your grandparents? Very strong, semi-strong?
I would say fairly strong. I always looked at them as my parents. They were the ones that picked me up from school, took me to my doctor's appointment, helped put me through nursing school.
You're explaining how present they were in terms of doing all the right things, right? They filled in all the gaps as a very responsible caregiver. I'm talking about the emotional bond and the emotional connection.
Yes. So they definitely played a caregiver role in my life. But as a child, I still did feel the absence of not having my biological parents and just feeling unwanted or abandoned. So even though they tried the best that they could to give me that love, I still felt that void growing up.
Yeah, and how remarkable that for a young woman, you're 35, you're already aware of your wounds, of your emotional void. So many of us go through life without even being aware of what you are aware of. It is such a commendable thing. And because you are aware, now you can begin the healing and the reparative process. It's really hard because, like you said, you have a fear now of what will happen when you become a mother. So talk about that fear a little bit. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that give me 3 fears you have. Complete the sentence.
I would be afraid of my child not feeling loved or supported.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, I would want to make sure that they feel like they're in a good, healthy environment. So whoever I'm in a relationship with, or my partner or their other parent, just making sure that that's a healthy relationship.
Yes.
My third fear would probably be, for me personally, just being at the age that I am at and not currently being in a relationship, just with my biological clock ticking. I think that would be my third fear, just as far as like health and actually being able to have that child.
Yeah, I hear you. So your fears are about the child not feeling loved and wanted and connected to, not having a healthy relationship. That can be traumatic. And of course, then your own fears about time clicking and running out of that. So let me just tell you and remind you that these fears really that you are having for your future child are very much a reflection of your own childhood experience, right? So that's what happens to us parents. And I want every listener to realize this as well, that whenever we have a fear for another, it's typically a projection of an experience we have already had. Typically, our fears cannot exist unless we've already had an experience of them ourselves. So because we've had an experience of that fear, we now project it into the future and to others. So I often tell the parents I coach that the fear that you have has already happened to you. So what I want you to realize by what I'm saying, and it's a little deep, so just bear with me. What I'm saying is, because what you fear has already happened and you're still here, means you have already survived it. That's huge, because you've already survived it. You're here. You're this beautiful woman, so attuned, so aware. You've not only survived it, you've possibly triumphed over it. So look how afraid we are that, oh my goodness, what if my kid doesn't feel loved? Guess what? You've already experienced that and you're still standing. You're still here, beautiful, attuned to your heart. Your next fear, well, what if my child experiences unhealthy relationships? Guess what? Jazz, you've already experienced unhealthy relationships and you're here. So I just want every listener to take this away, to observe and to become aware that every fear they have has probably already happened. When I say that, typically people feel, okay, I've already done that. And a sigh of relief. Are you experiencing anything like that right now? And if you're not, it's okay.
No, I am. It's a very good perspective that I never looked at. I'm looking at that child that I don't have yet, and I want to protect and make sure that, they're good. But reflecting back, that is true. That is something that I dealt with and I was able to overcome, and I'm still here. So that is a really refreshing perspective for sure.
Yeah, and really, as parents or to-be parents, I remind you all, it's not about the child in front of you that is causing the anxiety. It's the child inside of us that's causing the anxiety. So what a beautiful invitation now that every time you feel worried about this child of the future or the child in front of you, for those who are already parents, if you could just redirect that to your own self and say, wow, is my own inner child anxious right now? Does my own inner child need soothing right now? What can I heal inside me? So you asked a very important question. How can I make sure my child is okay, right? In a nutshell. Here's the truth. We can't, right? We cannot dictate what's going to happen tomorrow. You could be in a house and it could flood. You could be in a traffic jam and your child and you could observe an accident in front of you. You could be with your child and the roof could cave in. Now, I'm not here to create anxiety and give you more things to put on your list. I'm just speaking to the illusion of control. You want to have control, Jazz, because you suffered as a child. And that's where your desire for control is coming from your own experience, right?
Mhm.
I always say the reason we seek control is because we're anxious inside. So guess what? It's not about your child. It's about you. Now, once you realize that, you can begin to do that inner re-parenting and the inner soothing, the inner work. How can you avoid your child from experiencing pain? You can't, but you can minimize your brokenness by healing yourself right now. When you develop that relationship with your own inner child and you soothe that inner child, you take care of that inner child and you reparent, remother, now you can show up for your child in wholeness. And that is all you need to do. I mean, that's a big thing, right? Just show up in wholeness. But guess what? Wholeness is not perfection. I know you may have heard perfection. That's what we think wholeness is. And this is a really important point. Wholeness is not perfection. What is wholeness? Wholeness is a relationship with your pain. Wholeness is accepting your pain. Wholeness is celebrating your pain. That you can do, right? You can do that. Every human can do that. But you see, because we get so caught up in wanting to be perfect, we get anxious because no one can be perfect. So you need to be released right now, Jazz, from this burden you have placed on yourself that until I am perfect, I cannot have a child. You don't need to wait to be perfect. You're already on your way to wholeness. And that's all your child needs, is a mother who is working on herself. We are works in progress. And as long as we can just honor that and be humble that we are works in progress, we're not perfect, we're not amazing, we're not the next God in our child's life, here to control and protect them from all pain. What makes you beautiful, Jazz, and what's going to make you the best human partner, friend, and mother is your pain. What's coming up for you right now? I can see you nodding your head.
I think that a part of that's really true because I feel like I was missing that love growing up, which makes me kind of love a lot harder in my relationships.
Yes, but now you need to love hard on yourself. The relationship with your child or the relationship with this imaginary future partner is not going to heal you. Now you're becoming your best mother is the path forward. You had beautiful grandparents who tried the best they could, and you need to now take that in and mother yourself. And because your biological parents were not able to be the parents they needed to be, that's not because you were lesser than. Just because they couldn't show up, it doesn't mean you are not whole or potentially whole. It has nothing to do with you. You know, sometimes as children, we interpret our parents' negligence or our parents' lack as meaning that we are incomplete. And I'm sure you've made that interpretation on a deep subconscious level. But you need to release that. Your parents couldn't be there because they weren't there for themselves. So what do you think now, listening to this? Go deep in your heart. What do you think is the best gift you could give a child? You, Jazz, what is the best gift you think you can give your child?
I think my unconditional love.
Yes. For whom, though? Who's the first person who needs to receive that unconditional love?
Myself.
Yes. So the next time you have a question about, should I be a mother or not? Or what kind of mother and what kind of child and what kind of childhood? Come back here. I need to love myself unconditionally. That is the best foundation for your child's future emotional growth. Your unconditional love. And do you know why your parents couldn't be there for you? It's because they did not unconditionally love themselves. Right? We do unto others what we do to ourselves. So you grew up not feeling unconditionally loved by your biological parents. Now you can have a little understanding that they didn't love themselves. You've been carrying all this pain thinking it's you but it's not you. They couldn't connect with themselves. And now, if you want to break this pattern, if you want to be the pattern disruptor in your family, the way to break it is create a legacy of unconditional self-love. That is your greatest gift to pass on to your children. That's how you're going to change your family legacy. I see you nodding your head. So tell me what's going through your head.
It's easy to hear, but it's like, it's easier for me to give that love to someone else.
Yes.
Even like simple as my dog. It just comes very naturally.
Yes.
But thinking about what that looks like when it comes to myself is a little bit more challenging.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. It is a complete mind shift. And every listener listening to this right now will be able to relate. Me too. I find it so much easier to pull someone else up when they're depressed or encourage someone else when they've made a mistake. But when it's me, oh my goodness, we are hard on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we got from our parents and we recreate that in our lives. So it's almost as if Jazz, you need to put a picture of little Jazz on your bathroom mirror, on your fridge, and you need to get into a relationship with that child first before you have, quote unquote, a real child. You want to know, right? How to prepare?
Yeah.
You know, when I was 35, I was clueless. You are so tuned in. You are aware that you need to prepare. How beautiful. But then really prepare. Don't make it an intellectual exercise. Really prepare by putting little Jazz's picture everywhere. Get into a relationship with that child first before you get into how can I be a mother to a real child.
That's a good idea.
Well, that is more than an idea. It is the path to healing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing. You are a strong, resilient woman who I know will change the family pattern.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali. I appreciate that.
From both of the people we just heard on the show today, there was a common thread, a common universal concern that I think most parents have. It's this: is what I have to offer my child going to be good enough? Is it going to last them the rest of their lives? Is it going to last when I leave, when I die? This is such a common concern. And I often tell parents, it's legitimate. I get it. Listen, I'm a parent, I'm a mother. I have this concern too. But if we get stuck in that worry, if we get stuck in that anxiety about the future, we will forget to show up fully and present in the now. And ultimately, all of our concerns about whether our children will have enough from us boil down to our own sense of good enoughness. Am I good enough? Is what I have to offer you, the other in my life, good enough for you? And guess what? Often, this sense of good enoughness has nothing to do with the person in front of us. It has to do with our relationship with ourselves. It's because we don't deem ourselves as good enough that we project that the other is feeling like we are not good enough either. So ultimately, all roads lead back to our own inner relationship with ourselves. That's where healing begins. If you think that you could benefit from my help and you'd like to be on the podcast, this is how you can do it. Go to my Instagram at Dr. Shefali and type the word podcast, or go to my website, drshefali.com, and click on the podcast button. And I will see you next time on Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.